All right, I'm Dr. Duck Vuong, author of Ultimate Gastric Sleeve Success. That's available on Amazon, and also the director of bariatrics for Loveless Bariatrics. Now, the topic tonight is why a rigid mind makes us obese. And here's the first point. A rigid mind means that it's unmalleable, that it will not change, which basically means the question you have to ask yourself is, why is it rigid? And one definition of rigidity means that it just will not let go of the past. It will not let go of the way it thinks or the way it believes. So just think about that. If you have a rigid mind, for whatever reason, you are just set, some people call it set in my ways, or you're set in a certain belief pattern. And the question is, how did we get this way? And people think, well, this is how we've always done it. This is how I've always been. I'm too old to change. I'm too old to learn new tricks. This is my family. This is how I grew up. And this is what happened to me in the past. But that's a really terrible way of thinking, because what happens is that whether you believe it or not, the world is changing. It has changed, and it continues to change. And if you continue to hold on to the way you think things are or have been or should be, or the way you've always done it, then it will lead you to terrible suffering. Why? Because you're going to have a lot of misperceptions. You're going to believe the world should be a certain way, but it isn't, or these were how things were in the past, but that's not the way they are today. And Buddhist teachings tells us that that will lead to a lot of suffering through our misperceptions. So rigid mind will lead you to unhappiness. So ultimate goal of all of this is to get happiness, not to get thin, but to get happiness. So you have to let go of that rigid mind, because it won't let go of the past. Number two, a rigid mind keeps your mind closed from new ideas and new possibilities. It'll keep your mind closed from new ideas and new possibilities. And why is this a problem? It's because now you can't replace those old rigid thoughts with new possibilities. Instead of saying, well, my knees hurt too much, you have to start saying, I can run. Instead of thinking, well, I was never really good at math, or I'm not organized, you can say, hey, it's possible that I can go back to school. Even at this age, I can go back to school. I can leave this bad marriage. Someone else will love me. Someone else will find me attractive. That it's possible. It's possible for me to start my own business. It's possible for me to grow my business. It's possible that my kids can go to college and I can afford it. See, that's the sign of an open mind. And if you continue to have a rigid mind, it keeps you closed to new ideas. So here's tip number 3. What do we do to change this? So number one, you have to let go of old thoughts, because old thoughts are just it's a repeated pattern. Like we talk about exercise muscles, exercising your good habit muscles. So a bad habit muscle would be keep saying the same old bad thoughts. So you keep describing yourself the same way, you keep believing the same old things, and so you got to let go of those old thoughts. Every time you start to think something, you say, is that an old thought? Is that an old rigid thought that I'm holding on to? Does that make sense? Is that an old thought I'm holding on to? And if it is, you just let it go. You say, oh, well, that's interesting, and replace it with a new thought. Okay? Now listen, you don't have to, at this point, you don't have to change behavior. You can still do the old behavior. You can still think that, you can still eat that pizza. And so when you're eating this pizza, you say, yum, this pizza's to die for. And the thought you want to go is like, wait, that's an old thought. This pizza's not to die for. It's good, but it's not to die for. So you change that old thought, and you just keep eating your pizza. That's fine. Because at this point, you're not wanting to change that behavior yet. So 1, let go of the old thoughts. 2, now instead, you add a new good behavior. Like, for example, drinking water. Or in this example, you might want to have a big-ass salad, a lot more salad, and only 1 slice of pizza instead of 4 or 5 slices of pizza. Okay? So that would be adding a new behavior, right? So the approach to changing a rigid mind is 1, is to stop the old thoughts, but 2, add new behaviors without trying to fight against your old behaviors. At this point. Now, eventually, once you let go of those old thoughts, you're going to eventually change your old behaviors. Does that make sense? But right now, starting off, You want to just focus on the mind part. And to do that, you let go of the old thoughts, because that's what keeps your mind rigid, and you just introduce easy new behaviors. We talked about doing the easy things. Choose to do the easy things. So we are human, we are what we do, so you want to do, okay? And that's how you change your rigid mind. And that's why your rigid mind keeps you obese also. If you think about it, Lao Tzu tells us that everything that Lao Tzu is an old Chinese philosopher who wrote the Tao Te Ching that Taoism is based on. And he basically says in a verse in the Tao Te Ching to stay flexible. Because everything that's old and getting ready to die is rigid. Getting, rigid like a blade of grass. When the grass is young, it flows easily and bends easily in the wind. But as it dies and the sun dries it out, it gets real rigid. The same thing for trees. Young trees will flow easily in the breeze, but as they start to age, they will get real rigid, and that's when the branches break and they fall apart and the trees die. So rigidity is a sign of getting old. And if you want to stay young, you got to keep not only your body loose and limber, but you have to keep your mind. Most importantly, don't get a rigid mind. You have to keep your mind loose. That means letting go of old thoughts that haven't served you well, and 2, being open to new thoughts, new ideas. So in summary, a rigid mind causes our obesity because it keeps us mired down into old behaviors and the old thoughts of the past, which leads to misperceptions, which leads to our suffering and unhappiness, which leads to obesity. And then 2, it keeps our mind closed from possibilities, and new ideas and new opportunities. And to change this, you want to let go of your old thoughts, but you can continue doing old behaviors for now, that's fine, and add new behaviors on top of your old behaviors, if that makes sense. Like instead of having 3 slices of pizza, you can have a slice of pizza and then just have a big ass salad to go with it. And eventually you'll get rid of the pizza. It's not like I've never had pizza before. But that's my tips. That's the end of my talk. I realize that we're having some issues with connectivity, but that's because I'm in the hospital, and I think that the construction keeps it from broadcasting well. I'm seeing a lot of hearts, which is really good. So keep giving me hearts. We're shooting for 1 million hearts. Again, I'm Dr. Duc Vuong, Director of Loveless Bariatrics in Albuquerque. I'm a bariatric surgeon. I'm not seeing any comments right now, so I'm sure the connectivity is not, just maybe is not as good. So a couple of rules. If you're going to make comments, please keep them professional, and otherwise you'll get blocked. And if you're watching this on the replay, you can keep giving hearts. Hit the white man on the bottom, and feel free to share him. Share this broadcast on Twitter and Facebook, and invite other followers. I apologize for the poor connectivity. I'm not getting many comments. I will do a recap video and post that on Facebook also. My new book on lap band revisions is coming out next month, hopefully. I'm going to get the final edited script back and get some stuff in. NJ, Dr. V, what you're saying consider cognitive behavioral therapy? To a certain degree, I'm a big believer in cognitive behavioral therapy. Everything we do originates from our thoughts. Good question. I'm not seeing any other comments. Keep asking. I know you are. I'll probably see the comments when I watch the replay, and I'll apologize profusely for the connectivity, but it's just the way it is. Thank you so much, whoever's giving me the pink hearts. Just keep tapping your screen, tap, 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 even on the replay. Give me a lot of hearts. We're shooting for 1 million hearts. That's going to raise my profile. I'd like to have this broadcast lead me to 400,000 hearts. Since I'm not seeing any comments right now due to connectivity, I apologize again about that. I'm just going to tell you about my talk that dare you to stick your tongue out. Come on, Stacy, grow up. All right, so the the talk I gave yesterday was really awesome. I gave a talk on update on the bariatric surgery to the New Mexico American College of Surgeons. So it was a room of about 40 surgeons. They weren't bariatric surgeons. They were from all different fields. And it was real nice. I periscoped it. We had almost 500 people watch it. So it was pretty neat. And I think the doctors left with a new appreciation for what it is we do at Loveless Bariatrics and all the education we give patients. Remember, this process is not an easy process. You must be dedicated, and the key is education, and that's what I specialize in. I've written several books. I'm on book number 5, which is going to come out next month. I guess this is going to call, I'm kind of liking the name for the show, Real Talk with Dr. V. I don't know, what do you think about that? We'll do some real talking. And you can follow me on Facebook or Twitter at Dr. Vuong. I'm very active on Facebook mostly. And then these nightly shows. So I'm not seeing many comments. Again, I apologize about that. I hope y'all had a great weekend. I'm going to rest up, get ready for surgeries tomorrow. I'm going to Miami this weekend. So in summary, I'm going to wrap this up since I'm not getting any comments. I'm sure I am, but I haven't seen it. I lost 100 pounds 10 years ago with lap band and have maintained the weight loss. Good job, Kenny. Way to go. Just make sure you have maintenance on your lap band. It is a device that needs to be maintained. And the key with the lap band is you don't want to be too tight. So good job, Kenny. Dr. George Fielding, who's a friend of mine who's up in NYU, he's also a bariatric surgeon. He's had a lap band for 16 years, and I think he's maintained 150 pounds of weight loss. Never had to feel excellent. That's the way to do it. I have patients who have very little fluid in their band. That's the way to do it. So again, in summary, rigid mind keeps us obese because it won't let go of the past, which causes us to have misperceptions because the world has changed, so we're misperceiving things, and that causes a lot of suffering, which will then lead to obesity. Having a rigid mind also keeps your mind closed from new ideas and new opportunities, the belief that you can change, that you can do it, that it's possible, and that causes a lot of suffering and keeps you from growing and developing. So the way you get rid of rigid mind, one, is to let go of old thoughts. If you have a thought, you kind of say, is that an old thought? Is that a helpful thought? If it's not, you just let it go. You don't have to change old behaviors yet. Step 2, you practice on new behaviors, adding good behaviors. Okay? And then eventually those good behaviors will replace your bad behaviors as your mind starts to develop. And that's how you do that. Again, I apologize for the bad connectivity. If you're watching this on the replays, keep hitting the hearts. Tap the screen, give me 1,000,000 hearts. Share the broadcast. I'll see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night will be closer to our regular time of 7 p.m. All right, have a fabulous night. Thank you, everybody. I apologize for the connectivity. Good night.